Go ahead, Dale.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another Carbon Chemicals Farmer Training Session. I'll be your presenter today, Dale Smith, Product Development Agronomist for the Northwestern region. So today, we'll take a look at tomato production carbon chemicals way. Screen, Georgia.
You're having an issue with the screen?
Yes, I am.
Exit and come back in and see what happens.
Not even that I'm able to do.
Stop sharing the screen and yeah, I'm gonna try again. Dale, try to share again. Dale, you're muted.
Yeah, are you seeing that screen now?
Yes, I am. Go ahead.
No, but I still can't move it.
Oh. All right, let me share screen and you go ahead. Stop sharing. Okay, Dale, go ahead. Not hearing you, Dale. You're muted.
No, I'm not saying anything.
You're not seeing my screen?
Yes, I am.
All right, so you can
So,
start.
oh, you are moving the screen.
I'm gonna move the screen, yes.
All right, sorry for that, everyone. Sorry for the technical issues. As I was saying, I'm Dale Smith. I'll be the presenter for today. And today we'll be looking at tomato, which is a member of the solanaceous family. So we're speaking about Irish potatoes, sweet potatoes, even the deadly nightshade as a member of that family, as members of that family. And tomatoes are sun-loving crops. They do well in warm weathers, well-drained soil, and they're sun-loving crop. So with that in mind, you should have in the back of your head locations ideal for the production of tomato, given the conditions that they love. Okay. And as usual, we like to start off by highlighting the best practices that need to be carried out in any agricultural venture. So tomatoes will be no different. So we speak about variety selection and factors to consider: tolerance, the disease tolerance of the variety you select. You'd want to select hybrid varieties, have certain tolerances to diseases, and the germ factor can be guaranteed. You also want to know the market that you'll be going into, and that will help to determine the variety that you grow specific for that market. You also want to know the crop care, proper nutrition, the cultural practices, doing the staking, the pruning at the correct time, your pest and disease control, which we'll delve more into, your harvest period, how important it is to harvest the fruits at the right time and remove, and the way in which the fruits are removed from the plants have a lot to do with the longevity of the plant and by extension, the amount of yield you can receive from the plants. So all these practices have to come in mind when we speak about tomato production and not just pest and disease control. We also want to pay attention to our post-harvest, because it makes no sense we spend all the effort in production, and when it comes to time to bring the fruits to market, the quality has been severely depleted based on how we remove them from the field, based on how we package them, based on how we store them. So these best practices are very important in maintaining the quality and integrity of the fruit so that end user, the customer, can get that close to harvest quality. And that's what we're speaking about when we speak about post-harvest, maintaining that quality of fresh fruit all the way to the end user, to the table. So that's when we mention from farm to table, we are speaking about that best practice. Okay. So as we mentioned, we are looking at the disease and pest control, the carbon chemical way. And just to give you a broad overview, most of the diseases affecting tomatoes will be of a fungal or bacterial nature. So therefore, we can surmise that under certain weather conditions or climatic conditions, when the moisture, temperature, humidity are optimal, then we can expect a flare-up of these particular diseases. All right, let's go straight into it now. So one of the first diseases we'll look at will be damping off. And rightfully so, because this is a particular fungal disease that generally affects the seedling stage or the nursery stage of the tomato plants. So we are speaking about the management now of you, the farmer, of you, the nursery operator, to prevent this particular disease. And it is a soil mold, so it thrives best in cool, wet conditions. So right away, that brings to mind management of your water. So no overwatering, proper selection of the medium used or media used for the seedlings would be key in preventing this particular disease. And oftentimes, a large section of a tray of seedlings are killed. So you can see a broad spectrum in terms of the rate of kill when this particular disease affects. For the control of damping off, we have a wide chemistry. We have carbendazim, which is a SC formulation, soluble concentrate, very soluble in water, easily mixed out. We also have in a SC formulation as well, Zampro is also readily mixed out in water. And then we have our wettable powders, Topsin and Acrobat. Now, all these fungicides have the ability to control the fungal spores while they are in the soil. That is why we are recommending these particular fungicides, because they have that soil acting ability to control fungal spores or mold within the soil. And this particular disease, as I mentioned before, its main management is through the control of the water. So you, farmer, you nurse operator, have to manage the way in which you water, rate at which you water, and the time of day at which you water. Okay. Okay. Next slide, Georgia. So this is just giving you a visual, and this is the format we'll take. I'll speak about the particular disease or pest, and then show you the slide after how it looks. So you can relate to that and have mental pictures, and then follow up with questions if you do have any. So if you notice at the crown or at just up the soil level, at the soil line, you'll see that sign where the whole vascular tissue of the plant or the seedling rather has collapsed. So right away, you know that the plant is no longer able to uptake any nutrients. Subsequently, the plant will collapse and die. So this is a given for this particular disease. And once you're seeing this, then you're in a situation where damping off. And just to pay mind, if the condition has reached this far, it is irreversible. So you don't want to wait till you see all of this before you start to apply any of the fungicides that I have just mentioned. So on the first sign of wilting, you'll start to do that to prevent it from reaching this advanced stage. Slide. Next off, we're going to look at early blight. And the name is also wrong because at no point in time does this disease rarely shows itself in the early stage of the plant. It's more at the production stage or at the last part of the growth stage that you'll tend to see this particular disease. So don't be misled by the name early blight. And it affects both the leaves and fruit of the tomato plants. So what you look out for are irregular spots And it being fungal, generally has concentric circles around the necrotic area or that rotting area. And this particular disease is favored by high humidity. And because it's a leaf fungus, so to speak, any condition where we have extended leaf wetting and that high humidity will favor this particular disease. So in that case, we'd want to avoid overhead irrigation, or would want to avoid irrigating late evenings where the water will stay on the leaves for the extended period through the night and then through the mornings. If we have to do that kind of irrigation, we'd rather do so in the mornings, where as soon as you irrigate, the morning sun will come and dry off that leaf moisture. So these are things or management practices you can pay mind to when trying to prevent this particular disease. And this particular fungus can remain in the soil for an extended period. So it therefore means field sanitation is also paramount. So having planted a crop of tomatoes, it is very important for you to carry out proper field sanitation in removing crop debris that may be possible transmission for the particular fungal spore here. And again, we have carbendazim, which we use to control this particular fungus, along with bellis and carigol. Bellis is a wettable granule, so it's easily dissolved in water as well. And carigol is in a easy formulation, easily dissolved in water. So that's a particular main feature of all our chemistry, fungicidal chemistries. We want products that are easily dissolved in water and therefore form a solution and can be applied evenly across the surface of the leaves or be used as a soil drench. Slide. So here again, giving you a visual of what early blight looks like. And if you look carefully, you can see the concentric circles that I was speaking about, and see as the disease progresses, those concentric circles become necrotic in the center, giving that rotten spot, and eventually will fall out. And you also note that there's a kind of a yellow halo around the wider circles. And as I mentioned, if you see on the picture on the right, this is more a disease in the advanced stage of the plant. So remember again, it being early blight doesn't necessarily mean that it will come on in the earlier part of the plant growth. So generally when the plant is at the final part of the growth phase or in production that we see this. Okay. Anthracnose, also a very common disease faced in tomato production. And again, you'll see this mainly when the plant is in production. And a lot of times it is there in the growth stage, but we have to take note because it affects the fruit. And you'll see that in terms of less marketable fruits. So that's when we tend to pay attention, which is way too late. In this particular disease, you'll see small circles or lesions, circular lesions that start to appear first. But as the disease progresses, the spots become larger. And sometimes you may even see a little orange-brown color as it also progresses. And for anyone who has stored fruits, tomato fruits, sometimes that are not refrigerated, or as I mentioned earlier, in the post-harvest or in the storage, have been improperly stored where they cluster on each other with poor aeration, you tend to see this particular disease also flare up, where you see that orange-brown circular mark. It thrives in warm temperatures, and a high level of precipitation. So therefore, it's something a condition similar to that of early blight. A lot of leaf moisture with high humidity gives rise to this. And again, this is important because this particular pathogen can survive on the surface of seeds. So if we look back to what I was mentioning about best practices, getting seeds from a reputable source, hybrid seeds, will go a far way or a long way in preventing or lessening the possibility of such diseases happening. Splash effect, that is when rain falls or when we are using overhead irrigation, is one quick way of also having field transfer of this disease. So you see a plant showing the signs or demonstrating signs of this particular disease, and you are irrigating via overhead irrigation. That splashing effect can spread the particular disease to other plants, or even physically when you, the farmer, pass through and brush on the leaves and pass through to other plants. So it's highly transmissible through the field. Good. And for this particular disease, again, carbendazim, belly scargol. So it's showing the versatility of our fungicidal chemistries in controlling a wide range of fungal diseases. Using the carbendazim at the 10 milliliter rate, and if you know the rates are very low, bellis at 8 to 12 grams, very low as well. And carigol being a softer product, more in organic nature, we have upped the rate, 30 to 60 milliliters to the gallon. They are all effective. Carigol is even more effective when used in a preventative manner. So before you even see right up to the early onset, that is when carigol is most effective. It being an organic product in nature. Most organic products have that nature, have to be used in a very early stage in order to be effective in control. Slide. Here we have a visual giving you an understanding of what it looks like on the plant in terms of leaves. Notice compared to the early blight, these concentric circles are much smaller. They don't have that necrotic center as seen before, and it's not as widespread on the leaves. And then you can see it on the fruits. You can definitely see the concentric circles on the fruit, and see as it progresses, it becomes sunken and much wider. Slide. Cercospora leaf spot, oftentimes confused with early blight if you're not keen, if you don't have a keen eye. But we'll see the difference. These are smaller yellow circular spots, right? And the size and number of spots will increase as the disease progresses. This, however, this particular pathogen favors warm weather. So it's kind of a contrast to those we have looked at before. So we are speaking about warm weather, but high humidity. So this particular pathogen will free up in conditions where we have sunny, but then the planting distance might be incorrect and the plants are clustered and we have a lot of leaves touching each other. So the aeration between or airflow between the plants in the field or unit is very low. So then we have the flare-up of this particular disease. And the lesions tend to dry out and form like the white appearance. So that is when the disease is more in an advanced stage. And again, we have carbendazim, bellis, and carigol as effective chemistries to be used against this particular disease. So in general, what we've covered so far, you can realize that most of these fungal disease can be controlled using a certain range of chemistries that we offer at Caribbean Chemicals. So it's up to you, the farmer, to now be able to identify and then administer the appropriate chemistries. But not to fear, they are able to cover a wide range of disease. So you may not have correctly identified Cercospora leaf spot, and you mistook it for early blight, but then you applied carbendazim. Guess what? Problem was still solved. So that's a win-win there. So you can see why oftentimes the Cercospora can be confused with the early blight, as I showed you. So this looks much closer, the picture on the right looks much closer to that of early blight. But then you realize the nature of the initial spot, you're not seeing that evident concentric circles, nor is the center rotting out as much. And you notice that the yellowing in the Cercospora leaf spot is not as widespread as that of early blight. And early blight is a way more rapid disease in terms of spread through the field. Slide. Now, late blight. This one occurs much earlier in the stage of the crop than early blight. Why they name them like this, I do not know. However, this occurs much earlier, or generally can occur at any stage throughout the plant growth. But in comparison to early blight, it generally shows itself before. This one is identified by a dark water soaked blotch. So you'll first observe a light brown blotch on the leaves, kind of close to the margin of the leaves. And as it progresses, it becomes darker in color. And as I said, it's a water soak. So you'll get a dull brown color, as in if you were soaking a piece of paper in water and then it dried, that kind of appearance. And then as it progresses, as the disease progresses, that entire leaf, that spot will widen and that entire leaf will eventually dry down. And this particular disease proliferates in high humidity and extended leaf wetting. So we are seeing a lot of similarities between these leaf fungus or leaf molds, share very similar conditions. So this can help us in managing or properly managing our tomato cultivation by determining the type of irrigation, the time of irrigation, us paying attention to our crop spacing as well. And this can be spread by infecting plant materials. So we're speaking about you taking plants from an infected field, carrying over to a clean field, easy way of spreading. And because this is a particular disease that can show itself, we use a protectant fungicide such as mancozeb, Acrobat, which also has mancozeb in it, and Carigol, as I mentioned, when used in the earlier stage in a preventative manner, can control this particular disease. It's very important that we get it right. And this was the water soak spot I was mentioning. If you notice, occurs near to the leaf margin, leaf edge. And as the disease progresses, this spot will widen and the entire leaf will go down. On the fruit, kind of a similar situation where it affects the fruit and stem, a similar water soak mark, but this time is much darker. And once that occurs, that fruit will no longer be marketable. As a matter of fact, that fruit will not develop much further from that stage. This particular disease very important in that it can affect not only the plant itself, but also the yield in terms of fruit production. Slide. Now, our emphasis has been on the common fungal diseases so far. And in recapping, we have a wide range of chemistries that are able to somewhat prevent, but also control the diseases. So you may have heard me speak about a preventative use and a control use or a treatment use of the particular fungicide. Preventative is us using the particular chemistry to, as it says, prevent the disease from happening. We're trying to avoid reaching that situation, so we're using it in a kind of prophylactic manner. Control or treatment is only effective when the disease is identified in an early stage. Not to mention, a lot of times, if the disease has reached a late stage, like in the damping off, it makes no sense to start any chemical treatment. It will be too late. So you have to have a keen eye to ensure that the disease is caught early in order for treatment program to be effective. All right, moving on. Bacterial stock. Very highly contagious. Backtrack, Georgia. Very highly contagious disease. It's very common. It's being a soil disease, warm weather periods. So if you look on the leaves, oftentimes, and on the fruits, you'll see some small water-soaked lesions, nothing like in the fungal disease now. These spots are much smaller and they tend to be sunken. So when you run your hand over the fruit, you can actually feel that sunken area. And our treatment for this would be Sulcox, and the rate we'll use at 30 to 45. The rate is dependent on the severity of the disease. But again, I caution or I encourage you to make an early identification of the particular, in particular this disease, because bacterial diseases are way more devastating than fungal, or can be way more devastating than fungal diseases in terms of the effect they have on the plant and the difficulty in treating or controlling. Because this particular disease, we can link back again to best practices, using seeds from reputable sources. Seeds that have guaranteed you, the plant, or you, the grower, that they have been treated under certain conditions, that tolerant to certain diseases, and thus have a certain amount of germ-free. So this is us giving a visual of what bacterial spot looks like on the leaf and on the fruit as well. And you can tell from this picture that these fruits will no longer be marketable. So having this particular disease not only can affect the yield, but also the marketability of your crop. So you have grown the crop, the plants have produced fruits, and in that final stage now, you have bacterial spot coming in. That is not a matter of yield, that is a matter of marketability now. So don't get it confused. So this particular disease can affect the marketability as well as the yield of the tomato crop. Good. Again, bacterial wilt, Sulcox is our chemistry of choice. And the Sulcox is a copper hydroxide formulation. So it's very aggressive in controlling bacterial as well as fungal some fungal problems, issues as well. Bacterial wilt is such a disease that, as the name suggests, is a wilt. So you'll observe an overall deterioration of plant vigor, plant growth, plant development. And then that will cause the plant to become undersized, reduce production if it had started to produce, that is. And upon pulling that up, you realize that the roots have died. And you can also break the stem of the plant to see that all the vascular bundles are now brown, suggesting that the plant had stopped feeding for some time now. Thus, the wilting that you observed from the top in terms of the leaves and fruits, reduced production or formation of flower and fruits. Okay, slide. So this is what I'm talking about when I mention the vascular bundle. You can see that those brown streaks along the plant there, those were actually where the phloem and xylem would run. So that's where the plant would uptake water and nutrients from the soil and pull it all the way up so that the leaves and fruits will get it. And these now being damaged will give signs of what we observe now on the left. So you see that general wilting of the leaves, drooping of the leaves, small fruit size, that is as a result of the death of the vascular bundles that we see here on this slide. Okay, slide. Viral disease, I didn't mention that in the intro about viral disease because this is kind of a ticklish spot in the sense that oftentimes we categorize viral disease as just that, viral diseases, because we are unable to really identify without any microscopic level testing what particular disease, viral disease, that is. So there are certain general conditions that we can look for to say that, yes, it is indeed a viral disease. So whether it is a tobacco mosaic virus or a tomato mosaic virus, or even a potato virus, or a cucumber mosaic virus, whatever it is, there are certain general signs that we can look for, symptoms that we can look for to suggest that, yes, this tomato plant is coming out with a viral disease. So first we look for stunted growth, because we would know what a healthy plant should look like. We can look at the coloring. We are seeing a yellow-green color. The plant, the leaves no longer have that healthy green. We are seeing them change from green to now getting a little yellow tinge. We are seeing some mottling, meaning a mixed pattern of yellow-green in certain blotch formations or a mosaic. We're seeing reduced leaf size. The leaves tend to get smaller, curled. The fruits also get much smaller, right? These are all indications that we may be experiencing a viral problem in our tomato production. And oftentimes we tend to blame, even though they are vectors, we have insect vectors, like aphids, mite, whiteflies, you name them. They are possible vectors of diseases. We tend to blame them oftentimes, but in fact, a lot of the viruses, particularly the ones that affect tomato production here in Jamaica, which would be tobacco mosaic virus and tomato mosaic virus, these are spread via mechanical and cultural methods. So we're talking about you, the farmer, going through when you're pruning, when you're reaping, when you're walking, when you're scouting your field. These are the methods by which this particular virus is spread. Persons who smoke and then go through and handle the plants, the farm, the farm hand, the farm operator who smokes and then go and handle the plant. This is a big no-no. As the name suggests, tobacco mosaic virus. So that tobacco from the cigarette or the blem when you mix with whatever, that is a bigger threat to your production than any insect vector that you might be quick to blame. And a point of note also is that when it comes to viral diseases and their control, there's little to nothing that anyone can do to treat. There's no treatment. So no one should be able to tell you that, oh, we have the best things in sliced bread to treat your viral disease and stop it. No. What we try to do at Caribbean Chemicals is manage the viral load. So we are able to induce production, so to speak, or urge the plant on to continue producing while promoting quick usage of nutrients. So it's trying to get the plant to race the viral infection before it completely takes over the plant. So you, the farmer, can get back something from your production. Because it's very hard to say to you, oh, the field has been infected by virus. Chop it down. So at Caribbean Chemicals, we've come up with a series of chemistries that we use to offset this viral load. We use ZMC Express, which is a product high in a lot of micronutrients, actually nutrients, micro elements that are very essential, play a very essential role. So we're speaking about like magnesium, iron, manganese, elements very important in photosynthesis, chlorophyll formation, you know. We speak like boron, very important in the movement of sugars. So you can imagine how that plays an important role in combating the viral load. Zinc, talk about enzyme metabolism and reaction in the plant. Molybdenum, nitrogen assimilation. So all of these need to function, enhance the bigger picture. So when you now add your macros, your NPK, the plant is better able to assimilate these nutrients, use them, and continue giving you that production. So we don't have a treatment for viral disease. What we offer is an extension to production, so to speak, a management of the disease, not treatment. Bear that in mind, there are no treatments for viral diseases. Slide. Next slide, Georgia. So just giving us a look at Acrobat, particular fungicide offered at Caribbean Chemicals. Next slide, Georgia. We'll come back to this one later. And here's a visual of some of the general features we're mentioning about viral diseases. We're seeing that yellow-green pattern. That's what I mean by mottling or mosaic. We're seeing the curling of the leaves. Also, these leaves look much smaller than they would. We're seeing that green no longer exists. We're seeing that tinge of yellow. So these are general features of a viral disease. And oftentimes, in the earlier stage, because we are seeing curling before there's a lot of mottling, it oftentimes can be confused with mite infestation, which we'll get into. So bear that one in mind. That is me teasing you. All right, so now we'll move on to pest control. We've tried to cover some of the more common diseases affecting our tomato production. we'll now move on to pest control. And we're speaking about preventative pest control now. You don't want to wait till the field nearly dead before preventative. So as I was mentioning, might often allow the leaves to become yellow, which oftentimes can be confused with viral infections. But there's a difference in terms of the curling of the leaves. In mites, because they are under the leaves and feeding on the cuticle, on the underside of the leaves tend to curl downwards. Whereas in the viral control or viral disease, they tend to have an upward curl. So that's kind of a quick way to kind of help to differentiate with them. The mite also, that yellowing will progress to a bronzing. Whereas in the viral infection, the yellowing will become more mottled with the green. So you'll start to get that mosaic pattern. You don't get that in mites. What you get is the yellowing changing now to a bronze look. So when you stand afar and look on the field, you're seeing a kind of bronze goldish tinge throughout the leaves, mites. You'll also see some misshapen fruits in a mite infestation, as opposed to in a viral situation where the fruits are just underformed and very small. So misshapen versus the underdeveloped, right? Can also have premature leaf fall and fruit fall in mite infestation. So you look under the tomato plants and you're seeing a lot of leaf fall. You're seeing some small misshaped fruits and they too are falling, good indication that there's mite infestation. For that, we have our foolproof, that's what I'm calling it, foolproof mite treatment plan. And I say foolproof because it's one of the few treatment programs that offer a comprehensive control of mites. I say comprehensive because we have cure, which is able to control the adult mites, and we have Nizoron, which is an oovicide, which controls the egg. So we can see how that comes together to give us that complete package. Cure, controlling the adults. We are slowing the pest population. Nizoron now, adults may have already laid eggs that will become adults again. So we use the Nizoron to control the eggs. Oftentimes, farmers may have mite issues. They use a miticide, but however, there's a quick flare-up within the next 2 weeks. And you said to yourself, or a week, and you said to yourself, but I sprayed and I'm still seeing this problem. It's because those adults that were killed had already laid eggs that were not controlled by that particular miticide. And those eggs later on developed into mites that continue to tear down your tomato plant. So this is our foolproof control, cure Nizoron. Kill the adults, killing the eggs. Slide. And this is what it looks like. So you can see some of the similarities that I was trying to bring across between mite infestation and the viral infection in terms of the wilting, some of the curling, small fruits. However, on this particular one, the mites on the fruit, you can see the scarring. You get that overall rust look, a rustic look on the fruits. And you can also feel it very rough, and the fruits will be significantly reduced in size. Slide. Crickets. We call them cutters in Jamaica. Some of the farmers, you might know them as cutters. Those same ones, very pesky, and they can oftentimes break the spirit of the farmer in the point that you spend all this time transplanting strong, healthy seedlings, and you come back the next morning, and it's like somebody walked through the field with a power saw and cut down all those seedlings. So they have a very devastating effect on your plant. And once they cut those tomato seedlings, that's it. So we need to get these out before we even start our production. So Caratrax, Diazinon, these are chemistries that are able to effectively control. And Diazinon in particular is a chemistry that can be used in the soil. It's one of the rare insecticides that are soil active and is capable of controlling pests within the soil. So we're speaking about ants, crickets. You can always find creative ways to bait the diazinon or bait these particular pesticides outside of spraying. So see, we have showing the damage that they cause, that cut of the seedling, good healthy seedling, just been transplanted. Boom, Mr. Critic comes over the night, one cut. That's it for your tomato seedlings. So you can see how important it is to get this particular pest out. Because once the plant has hardened and that stem stalk becomes much sturdier, they no longer trouble it. They are no longer interested. So they are interested only in the young succulent seedlings. So it is within that first 1 to 2 weeks of transplant that you would have most problem with this particular pest. And it is in that first 1 to 2 weeks that is very important for you to ensure that your plant population is still viable in order for us to have that production target that we set in mind. Slide. Aphids. Very common, very persistent pests found in a very wide range of vegetable crops and even tree crops as well. They can have different colors and then basically found on the underside of the leaves and on the stem. Sometimes in very extreme cases where there's a very high pest pressure, you can see them on the fruit stem side closest to the fruit. A thing with aphids that often, or a condition that often follows the infestation of aphids is that of sooty mold. And that is a very dark mold that forms on the surface where the aphids feed. And that is so because when the aphids pierce the plants, they secrete what we call honeydew. And this in turn attracts the ants. Ants come to feed on the honeydew and then encourage the growth of the sooty mold. So we can see it's somehow a part of nature. You understand? It's some symbiosis going on, but then we want to see our tomato plants growing healthy. So we care very little for this kind of symbiosis. So you oftentimes observe the sooty mold and the action of the ants before you even sometimes really observe that the aphids are there. You're seeing a lot of ants moving, and then when you flip the leaves, you actually say, where are these ants? And you may be tempted to try to control the ants when ants are not really affecting the plants. It is the aphids more so. We control these aphids with Caprid, Caratrax, and Danitol. And these are very effective chemistries, and they are used at a very low rate, 2.5 to 5, that is a half to 1 teaspoon per gallon of water. Needed to pay close attention to the application rates and not be tempted to be using the product based on smell or coloration, right? These are very effective chemistries. And if you notice the aphids feeding on the underside of the leaves, and you'll see an overall reduction in the vigor of the plant because they are feeding. And if the pest pressure becomes very high, and if left unchecked, the leaf tissue will become so thin, translucent, till it actually falls out. So that's what we're seeing over here on the next side. And the leaf will start to wilt and eventually die. But we will not reach that situation because you would have been keen and quick to identify this, and you'd have applied Caratrax capita danital. So we won't reach to that picture on the right slide. Next slide. All right, thrips. Thrips, aphids, whiteflies, we consider as soft-bodied insect pests, and the control is generally basically the same. So we can toggle with the chemistries. However, thrips show a very different sign in terms of the effect they have on the plant and on the plant leaves because they feed in a different manner. Whereas aphids pierce and suck, the thrips actually scrape. They have what we call a rasping mouth part, so they scrape. So actually some silver streaks or specks on the plant leaves themselves. And they affect mostly the young developing buds and flowers. So right away, we know that they have a direct impact on the yield because if we're speaking about them feeding on the flowers and buds, those are potential fruits, right? And another thing with thrips, they are oftentimes vectors of a wide range of disease pathogens. So it's in our best interest not only to stop them from them carrying out their damaging effect on the tomato plant, but also to prevent them from spreading any particular diseases. Again, we have caprid as one of the products used in our arsenal to control thrips. Cure is also a wide product, not only in my control, but also in general control of soft-body insects. And we also have Indicarb, it's a broad spectrum insecticide as well. Slide. This is what I was speaking about when I was mentioning the scraping effect of the thrips based on how they feed. You're seeing those specks, those silver specks that will be it. And on the fruit, you're seeing that yellowing. As opposed to a piercing effect on a fruit, you'd see a circular bleach spot suggesting a piercing. This is more a scraping. And you can see that they were on this fruit from an early stage. This was not just done now when the fruits were mature, from an early stage. Slide. White flies, very pesky. However, when identified, they can be controlled relatively easy using caprid, and they too are found on the underside of the leaves, right? And they have a soft kind of cottony substance in terms of leaving their nymphs. So their life cycle can be carried out very quickly, thus the high proliferation in such a very short time. So if left unchecked, they can take over a field in a very, very short time. But caprid is very, very effective in controlling these, and it has translaminar effect. So it is able to be pulled through and reach these particular pests that are on the underside of the leaves. So it's a very important feature of caprid, as translaminar ability to be pulled through or move through rather. It can move through the leaf to reach the target pest on the underside of the leaves. Slide. Now here are showing some damage of white flies on the leaves and on the fruit as well. Okay, slide. All right, now that we've gone through that, just for some quick recap, go ahead, Georgia, slide. Just to highlight some of the fungicides that we have, we said we had Topsin, which is a wettable powder, very soluble in water. It's very systemic and it can be used in a preventative and curative manner. It can also be used in a soil or foliar application. So a very, very all-round fungicide. Bellis, also systemic and protectant, has 2 active ingredients. It also has what we call excellence, meaning when used at a particular rate, this is able to improve the yield in terms of fruit size, the robustness of the fruit and plant, as well as offering the fungal control. So when used at a particular rate, Bellis can offer fungal control and also provide excellence effect. Slide. Carbendazim, one fungicide that I've spoken about a lot, and rightfully so, because it also can be used both soil and foliar application. It is systemic, and that's very good when we speak about fungal control being systemic and being used in a curative management program. So it being systemic allows it to be used in a curative rather than just preventative. It can be used effectively in a curative control program, but only when the disease is identified in the earlier stage. Go ahead. Sulcox, as I mentioned, was a copper hydroxide, copper hydroxide formulation, a very aggressive product, very effective also in controlling bacterial and fungal problems. This particular formulation, you need to pay close attention. Although it readily mixes in water, you need to pay close attention to agitation and ensure that it is fully mixed out and dissolved in the water before applied or before included in the spray pan. That's a general feature of wettable powders, especially fungicides. We want to mix them in a smaller container, get that mixture properly dissolved or get the powders properly dissolved in water before adding it to water that is in your sprayer to ensure even spread of the mixture when being applied. So that's just a quick tip of mixing wettable powders. Slide. Zampro is an SC formulation, soluble concentrate. So it has no problem in mixing. It's very easy, high dissolving in water, and is suitable, especially during rain conditions, when we have continuous rains, to prevent and cure. And if you notice, again, I've stressed preventative and curative treatment or management programs using our wide range of fungicidal chemistries. Because it's how, and that is why we tend to have 2 rates to suggest to you, the farmer and the user. 1 rate, slower rate, we can be used in a preventative manner, trying not to see the disease. And this next rate, we can stop the disease when we've identified it in an early enough state. So that is why we have 2 rates, preventative, curative. Just giving the next point as well. Okay. So just ended the speech. So now I'll have one question before I ask. If you have any questions, I have one question for you. Based on what we've... Yes, Georgia?
No, it's Alianne.
Oh, let me ask this question first.
Oh,
please.
I thought, okay.
All right. So based on what we've gone through, this is my question. Georgia, let us know what you'll win. What would be considered the #1 preventative method in viral control? Method, action, practice, whatever. What would be considered? That's my question to you. All right. I'm feeling question now, so go ahead, Sal.
Ask Michael, I just wanted you to go back to the Thompson slide in the recap just now.
The Thompson slide?
Yeah.
All right. Georgia, back.
You may send your answers to you.
All right, backtrack to the Thompson slide, Georgia, please.
Your question again, Dale, was what?
What would be considered the #1 preventative method, action, practice in viral control in tomato plants?
Want me to answer that now?
No. All right, go on. Go
on. ZMC Express and
No. Listen,
okay. So you have to choose your seeds first properly, proper seed selection.
All right, top. Yes, that's it. That's what I wanted to hear. The seed selection from a reputable source. Yes.
Right.
Because remember, I said there's no treatment.
And the handling and everything, and even the clothes, because you can transfer from whatever.
Right. So,
and the
best thing you can do,
smokes going through your field and all of that kind of thing. And
best thing you can do is select seeds from a reputable source. Right. So we're on the Thompson slide now. So what you wanted to see?
I'm just taking some notes here. So just in case, I usually learn a whole lot more from you. So.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, no problem. All right.
I just want enough you to give me one more second. Yes, thank you so much.
No problem. Somebody in the chat. Oh.
So we can go ahead and take questions from our participants or farmers.
Yes, definitely.
All right, it doesn't seem we have any questions, so you can wrap up Dale.
All right. So as usual, we are located island-wide and we have agronomists and sales agronomists right across the length and breadth of Jamaica. They can be contacted. The numbers are up on the screen. So for persons in a particular region, parish can identify both the product development or the sales agronomist. Or if not, can also contact Caribbean Chemicals at Ashenheim Road, 757-0022-24. It was a pleasure bringing to you once again good information. Thanks for listening in. And I hope to join you again soon. All the best.
All right, thank you very much, Dale. And we will send your gift with the truck the next time it goes to Mobay. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dale. Very good.
You're welcome.